Welcome to the Shadow Warrior podcast. This is episode number 137 about social media fiascos. I'm delighted to once again have my old friend, Dr. Abhishek Puri, who is both a he is a radiation oncologist, so cancer doctor. You have to be, you have to be careful about that. But he's also a tremendous technology enthusiast. So we talk about technology quite a bit. So I'm really delighted to have him come back and talk to us about a subject that's pretty close to his heart, social media, in particular, Telegram. So, welcome, Abhishek. Thank you once again for coming on
Perfect, sir.
board.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you, sir.
you're quite welcome. So, you've been an advocate of Telegram for some time, right? And you've been continually encouraging me to become a Telegram enthusiast as well, and I've been resisting it. But there have been a bunch of strange things that happened with Telegram recently. So I'd like to have you take a look at what happened and explain it to us. Plus, also put it in terms of what's happening with other social media, such as X and maybe Meta. So, is there an overall picture? But tell us about Telegram. What's happened and what does it all mean?
Well, Telegram is honestly a strange service because it is not exactly a one-to-one chat service, but it is also a social media which is built into the chat service. So it has got groups which can accommodate almost city-size population, almost 200,000 people, and it has got channels which serve as a broadcast medium for unlimited number of subscribers. But what interests me and what intrigues me is just not the one-to-one chat feature. It is the ability to automate the entire platform by use of bots. And by using them, we can achieve several objectives to achieve community building or propagate a message or share something very widely. So this is something that I have been always interested in. So that is the reason why I am a big enthusiast of Telegram. Also utilize this in specific, let's say, healthcare or medicine contacts, where in the context of medicine as well, where you can utilize the certain features to share the knowledge and build structure to the conversations.
Okay,
So that's why I'm intrigued. That's why I'm intrigued by this particular application.
right,
So this is one reason.
right.
The
So the
second reason
broadcast.
is that,
Now, did you say the broadcast feature or the fact that you can have very large numbers, 250,000 users? Which of these is the thing that interests you most? Which functionality specifically?
well, I would say that both, in fact, because I manage quite a bit number of communities, and I can see that how the people from various diverse streams can interact. So it's kind of a microcosm of how the people think and how do they react to given information. So, for example, if somebody wants to forward something, what are the triggers that the person has used them to forward? What are the uh, let's say the emotional context that the person wants to convey.
Hmm.
So, for example, this is how the misinformation or the disinformation spreads across groups.
Okay.
But if you have a layer where you can provide the human curation with automation, that is where Telegram excels. So, for
Okay.
example, I need to share something from a website. I just need to automate a chain of bots and it is broadcasted immediately
All
into
right.
my groups or into my channels. So
Okay.
that's the reason why I'm intrigued by the possibilities of this platform.
Okay. You had prepared a few slides, hadn't you, about what happened
Yes,
with Telegram? Would you like to go ahead and
yes,
show us those slides? Thank you.
yes. Well, I must admit that these slides were prepared over a very short notice, so I haven't had any means to, beautify them. But I've just highlighted a couple of points from the online mainstream media,
Okay.
and I would like to just share the screen. Just
Okay.
give me a minute.
Yeah.
I'll go along with it.
Right. So I saw the slides and they're quite meaningful, and it's interesting. Oh, here we are. We're showing the slides. Just well, it's yeah, there it is. Okay.
So,
So
well, the first set, what's it? I cannot get into the,
there, it's sort of let's see. What happened is that uh, it's become portrait rather than landscape. Okay.
one sec.
Yeah.
Uh,
But basically, what you've done is you've picked up information about Telegram from a bunch of sources, especially the Financial Times, over the last
yes,
few um, weeks, I guess, a week or so. Okay. All right. Great. There
I
you go.
think we are good to go.
Yeah. Let's go.
So, in this, what you can see that Telegram reaches almost a billion users. On the left, the owner of Telegram, who was arrested recently in France,
Yeah.
gave an interview to the Financial Times, which is considered as a deep state asset and
Yeah.
extremely left leaning.
Yes.
On the right, you see the screen grab taken from Tucker Carlson
Hmm.
interview to Pavel Durov, who's the owner of Telegram.
Right.
And in that, he had explained his perspective and his point of view. It is of note that this was almost the first time in 8 years that Pavel Durov had given an interview to mainstream media.
Okay.
Otherwise, he ends up speaking mostly through his channel.
Okay. Okay.
I'll go to
All
the
right.
next.
Yeah. And he lives in
So,
Dubai. Isn't that true?
yes, that's right. He is a UAE citizen. He's a
Right.
citizen of France as well, and
Okay.
he has taken a passport of same Kitts.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not sure whether he is a Russian citizen or not.
Okay.
So, if you see the specific headlines that how West reports Telegram. So, for example, I've taken a few of the screenshot of the Financial Times only. That how Financial Times has been digging into Telegram.
Hmm.
Why would a Western financial newspaper would want to look into Telegram so dearly? And uh, these news items have come only in recent times. That is
Right.
over a span of a couple of weeks or months. And
Yeah.
prior to that, prior to 22, 23, you don't really see the coverage of Telegram in the mainstream media.
Hmm.
So the question is that why is it now, and what is the importance of this timing?
Yeah. Yeah. I
So as you
actually
can see,
I went through the tectonic piece, which was quite good. I liked that. It was quite detailed, the one that you had up there. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted by a phone call. But please go ahead.
yes. So if you see that how West reports Telegram, you can see it over here.
Yeah.
So is that Telegram? Uh,
Hello.
yeah,
Hello. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So Telegram's financials are being dug into, and they are trying to figure out a way. They are conveniently ignoring the fact that Meta was running into losses worth billions of dollars, and
Yeah.
then they were burning through a huge amount of money for their so-called metaverse, but there was
Hmm.
not a murmur of protest. Suddenly, Financial Times found it worthwhile to dig into Telegram's source of funding. And it is very interesting to see that Financial Times, despite its animosity, was encouraging users to join the, you know, Telegram channel of Financial Times, which was surprisingly ended last year in September.
Hmm.
As on the right, you can see that this was the last post on Telegram's channel. So why did
Okay.
they start it and why did they end it?
That's
So my
interesting.
submission is, yeah,
Yeah.
my submission is that it was a classical psyops and information warfare,
Okay.
especially once they realized that they needed to influence the non-Western audiences.
Okay. Okay.
So, so that is the reason why they probably started the Telegram. Why they ended it is again a mystery.
Well, let me ask a question. Is it true that Telegram caters mostly to a non-Western audience? Is that true or not?
Yes, as per the when I was taking the statistics last year,
Yeah.
bulk of the bulk of the users were centered in Europe and Asia.
Okay.
In Asia, India was leading with 32% of the global user base.
Okay.
In the US, it is not really popular, and any application which has got a Russian tag, the
Hmm.
Americans they tend to have their antennas up.
Right.
That is
Right.
because of probably the historical context.
Okay.
Then in 21, uh, there was a interesting investment by UAE uh, where they uh, I think it was Mubdala or Abu Dhabi Investment Group,
Hmm.
which had invested about 150 million USD,
The
and it was
sovereign, the sovereign wealth fund.
that's right, that's
Yeah.
right. So it was the Abu Dhabi group that had invested money,
Yeah.
and I am quoting Dr. Ankit Shah, who has been mentioning about the de-dollarization
Right.
and the shift of the Middle East to
Hmm.
India.
Hmm.
So, in his predictions, he has mentioned that Abu Dhabi or UAE will turn towards first Hindu majority nation by 2030. So there is a huge shift. I won't go into details, but he has been mentioning about de-dollarization.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there is a high likelihood that Telegram was being used as a anchor tenant in the UAE, in the very nascent UAE's technological industry.
Okay.
And they wanted to attract a lot of other developers and ecosystem players because Telegram is now offering the payments to the creators as well as the payment infrastructure through crypto.
Okay.
So, as in my last line, I have mentioned that Telegram is the only non-West because it
Right.
is headquartered in Dubai
Right.
social media application which is not controlled by the Western three-letter agencies. So none of the Western intelligence agencies have a direct influence on Telegram. And
Right.
was mentioned very clearly by Durov across his interviews in Tucker Carlson's show, as
Okay.
well as few of his channel posts, which have very clearly mentioned about this particular instance.
And let me ask another question there. I guess Middle East entities, both in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, they're investing heavily in tech, as you alluded to. For example, there's a whole lot going on in generative AI there as well, which is quite interesting that they're attempting to have a stake and a say in the way technology evolves.
Yes, during our generative AI podcast, we had also looked into how Saudi has invested in NVIDIA's chips,
Right.
as well as created their own ChatGPT knockout called as Falcon.
Yeah, LLM.
So, yes,
Yeah,
Falcon LLM. So we had
right,
looked into that aspect
right,
in the previous podcast as well.
right.
So,
Please carry on.
if you join the dots, that is the de-dollarization UAE alignment of geopolitics in terms of geopolitics. as well as only non-West application, which is not controlled, or the intelligence agencies having no control over the social media.
Hmm.
So if we join all these thoughts, then the question comes that why the arrest? Why now?
Mm.
So there were no details offered except for the fact that Telegram was having a lot of illegal content. And Durov's arrest, it started off with the free speech debate across the world. And then there were issues which were raised on its encryption and on Pavel's brother, who is considered as a mathematical genius.
Yeah.
So there was a intense scrutiny. And then a lot of Western commentators, especially the Western cryptographers,
Mm.
they piled on, saying that the Telegram's encryption was poor. It could be broken into, or it doesn't offer a proof. But that is considered as a direct frontal assault on Telegram, because it is widely known that the West use its academicians to target the other applications.
Mm.
So if you're not aligned with them on the patents, or if you don't share any intellectual property with them, so they tend to find everything which is wrong with the rest of the world, and nothing wrong with the systems that they have.
Well, there's more. I suspect that Telegram did not allow them to have these trapdoors, which almost all other Western social media has, which enables the three-letter acronym entities to enter them and snoop around, right? So maybe Telegram wasn't open to that suggestion.
This is a very distinct possibility,
Hmm.
but we don't know what goes on. So everything just goes on the face value.
Right.
We are assuming that we're assuming that WhatsApp's encryption is absolutely robust,
Hmm.
and it is the face value of the academicians.
Hmm.
They are lending credence to it, but it is a open question as to how trustworthy they are,
Right.
especially when they are aligned with the U.S. state policy.
Right.
Anyway, so next step was that there was an intense scrutiny of the MTT proto, which is the basic encryption protocol of Telegram.
Hmm.
Honestly, I'm not a cryptographer, but there were some papers which had which had appeared recently, and they had come online. So I cannot get into these kind of details, but suffice to say that empty photo has not been broken into. So they
Okay.
have not been able to define or show that the encryption or the mathematics underlying this particular platform is weak, or it is not as robust.
Right.
Just that the Western academicians cannot, or the Western cryptographers cannot break into it. So they are just dismissing it as saying that Telegram's encryption is at fault.
Okay.
So this is the only criticism of the platform that they have.
Well, okay.
Then I'm utilizing the word gaslighting from the discussion that we had offline,
Yeah.
and you can see that the Western media is calling it as a global sewer. In fact, the term global sewer was coined by New York Times in an article which appeared today itself.
Hmm.
And then they started saying that they had analyzed 3.2 million Telegram messages from specific and so many number of channels.
Hmm.
And they started creating horror stories around criminals, terrorists, and grifters, even the so-called white supremacists utilizing Telegram to sow anarchy and this and that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But but this is just one aspect. If you if you look into the previous news reports, uh, Fast Company had reported on 6th of July that the Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp, they pose a terrible risk to the kids as well as the users.
Okay.
And this was in the context of the generative AI.
mm,
And
mm,
then, uh, in fact, a very, very good investigation by Wall Street Journal in September 21
mm,
was done on Instagram, which had demonstrated that how the algorithm was hurting the teenage girls
mm.
because it was promoting self harms onto the platform.
Okay.
So, if the governments have not acted on the Instagram Meta and they have not been shut down, and despite all the the phony show at the in front of the Congress
Mm.
where Zuckerberg was trying to testify, I have no clue that why should Telegram be vilified, and suddenly it has become a haven for terrorists and all other people.
Yeah, if I may jump in, um, the
Yes, please.
accusation was that the curation or the censorship, to put it in more blunt terms, of the content is much better at other social media like Facebook, which has, thousands of people, I guess, who are doing content curation and deleting what's harmful. Whereas Telegram, which is a very lightweight company in the sense that they only have, I don't know, 100 people or something, right? So they don't have
Yes.
that many staff sitting there and removing bad content. So that was one of the things that was widely spread after Durov's arrest. And I don't know. Actually, one more thing I wanted to mention in this context is that all this cryptography business, once you have quantum computers coming out, most of this goes out the window
Yes.
because the existing encryption algorithms will all be broken by quantum. So that's a bit of a red herring,
Yes.
I think, because I tend to agree with you that if you connect the dots, there are some interesting questions as to why now and why these people and why not others. So there are things that we don't know the answers, of course, and we're just speculating that there are other reasons underlying it. So please continue.
So after Durov's arrest, Telegram had, after the day, they had released a statement saying that the platform or its owner are responsible for abuse of that platform. And they had almost confirmed the number of a billion users globally.
Hmm,
So Durov was, of course, released on bail after 4 days. But during that time, there was the UAE which jumped into the picture, which was seeking consular access.
hmm,
I have no clue as to what happened in the background or what happened in the backroom discussions.
hmm,
But it was UAE who was equally concerned about the the most important pillar of their de-dollarization.
right.
And then there were fake news which cropped up saying that the UAE had cancelled the Rafale deal. So there were the different words which were put in. Some said put on hold, or some said it was reviewing, some said it was cancelled.
Hmm,
But I'm not getting into the geostrategic initiatives or geostrategy of UAE, India, and France right now. It is not
yeah,
important to the discussion.
right.
But suffice to say that UAE was very much concerned about arrest of Europe.
Okay, okay. But if I may jump in on the geostrategic side, you had mentioned
Yes,
Ankit Shah talking about de-dollarization. There
yes,
is the other aspect, which is kind of in the background, of the Saudis walking away from the petrodollar. They have they've ceased to have this strong tie between the US dollar and petroleum exports. Now they'll accept payment in other currencies, notably the BRICS currency and possibly yuan and so forth. So there's de-dollarization happening in the background, which also suggests that there is a little bit of a rift between the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the US. But we'll let that pass. It's just an interesting sidelight, which may or may not be relevant. So please continue.
that's right. So after his release on bail and everything, so after a couple of days, uh, Durov had posted a very interesting explanation on his channel. He said that he
mm,
was not arrested, he was interviewed by the police. And this was surprising that why he would be held because he mentioned through his channel that he has been very cooperative in removing whatever uh, the areas of concern were.
mm,
And there were numerous instances where the abuse of the platform was not allowed to happen.
mm.
The terrorist events or the terrorist broadcasts were also held back or they were removed. But Telegram has been very clear in its stance that they will not, really educate into the matters of freedom of speech.
Okay.
Because, say, for example, the US version of freedom of speech, as protected by one of its amendments in the Constitution, is
First.
absolute,
Mm,
and the Indian version of freedom of speech is relative. That is,
right.
it has got reasonable limits imposed on it.
Right.
So, if these are the fundamental differences, the freedom of speech varies all across the world in and has got many different cultural nuances. So, if the global platform cannot be really dragged into the freedom of speech discussion, in my humble opinion, it has to be adjusted based on the local laws.
Right.
So, ultimately, the big question is that who's responsible for the potential abuse of the platform? So suppose if these scams they take place through the mobile phones, which is happening right now through the OTP scams or the courier scams where people are being asked for OTPs.
Mm.
So would you hold the CEO of the telecom company responsible for the lapses that are happening?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
answer is absolutely no.
Yeah.
It is an obvious no. So why should Telegram be penalized for such a thing? It is just a technology platform.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So the way forward, I think, which I mentioned, that why Telegram is an exciting technology platform. Uh, Personally, for me, there are a number of privacy-focused uh, settings which allows me to keep my relative anonymity.
Mm,
And one final word of advice for anybody is to use the platform responsibly, as the onus is on the user.
mm,
So freedom of the speech is not absolute. It may be absolute in a Western country, but we are not living in the West.
mm.
And the Western standards have zero meaning and zero influence on Bharat or any other place on the planet.
Okay. That's a very interesting note to end on, which reminds me of the other issues with social media that we have observed in the recent past. One is that X, which is the platform that has been deprecated in Brazil. Uh, Suddenly, that's become a big free speech issue. And as you pointed out, free speech has different meanings. And in some sense, there is the question of what is um, free and what is responsible speech. And then the other question of, as you correctly pointed out, is the channel that is responsible for moving the content around. Is that responsible for the biases and various other negatives of the content? So it's a very difficult question. But anyway, it's interesting to me that X is in a little bit of trouble in Brazil, and their Supreme Court has essentially said, look, we're going to ban X in Brazil, and Elon Musk is up in arms about that. And then the other thing is that um, Mark Zuckerberg recently confessed that he had been forced to change the way COVID was depicted during the epidemic. I presume in ways that the establishment, the pharma establishment and the National Institute of Health were projecting and so forth. So what we're seeing here, I think, is churn in social media in multiple ways. And so, thank you very much, Dr. Abhishek, for helping us decipher some of the things that happened. This is not the end of the story. a lot more to come. So we'll be back with another episode when we see some more finality. And once again, thank you very much for joining
Thank
me.
you. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Jai Sri Ram.
Stay tuned.